Okay, let's all. Okay, well, okay, let's go. We're going to start a presentation. Eric Hansman is going to give a presentation on the Allegheny Branch in Pittsburgh. And Eric is a well-known modeler. He has given this presentation at least once before at an RPM meet and maybe other places. And if you ever have a chance, he has an excellent blog on the internet. If you want to look at, he has photographs that he's put up that he's found on the Allegheny Branch in Pittsburgh. And he has, if you're a modeler, he has done some excellent modeling, showing you how to do it. He's very detailed. It's excellent blog, and quite willing to share information. So Eric, I'll let you get started.
Thank you, Andy. First off, can everyone hear me okay in the big room?
Yes, you
Okay. Ask that everyone else please mute your microphones so we can focus just on the info at hand. I call this the forgotten B&O industrial line because most of it disappeared in the early 70s. And it's fascinating. I've presented this at RPM East and the Mid-Atlantic RPM, as well as our local Nashville area division meeting, NMRA division meeting, and it's always gone over very well each time. So I'm interested in connections, many interesting connections in Pittsburgh, mainly industry, but also with people, and of course, railroads. You're probably wondering, what do all these have to do with the B&O? Well, these products were produced by these companies. Heinz, of course, Damascus Bronze produced the bearings in the upper right-hand corner there. Ayling & Corey was a paper distributor, paper here. They also had warehouses in Buffalo and Rochester. National Casket was on the B&O Allegheny Yard branch. And also there was a pressed steel car company manufacturing facility down near the end. And these are just the tip of the iceberg. Here are many more of the industries served by the B&O the B&O Allegheny Yard branch in a 5.9 mile long stretch of rail. One of the resources I enjoy perusing the most is the B&O Form 6 books, and the one from 1922 I bought from the company store gets a lot of wear. I'm model 1926, so this fits into my wheelhouse, and a lot of what is printed there is pertinent for my modeling. Many of these companies survived for years, or the facility survived under different names too. But we see quite a bit in just the first 2.6 miles. These are the miles from Willow Grove, which is the connection with the rest of the B&O. And there's just a variety of industries all along here. The Form 6 books, later versions, had another column. I'm not sure exactly where, it may have been beside station number, but it included the valuation section numbers. So it makes it easy for you to find the val maps, the ICC valuation maps that David was discussing earlier, as well as notes and other resource items. 1922, I guess they didn't think about including that, but I know later editions of the Form 6 books had that column of information. We need to go back in time, though, back to the early days of the Allegheny Yard branch before it became a B&O property. It was the Pittsburgh and Western. And this was a line constructed, I believe, Oliver, can't remember the first name, from Oliver Steel, one of the principals of Oliver Steel Company, was one of the people pushing the Pittsburgh and Western. And this was their original line. They branched out west of Butler and into Ohio. And then they also built a 3-foot gauge line that's notable from Foxburg up into the oil fields around Oil City. And BRMP had trackage rights over part of this line to Butler. B&O took control in 1902. Here's a map of the P&W from about 1887, and you can see they had big dreams. The Pittsburgh and Western ended here at Orville. So this is basically the line here. And this shows the line to Fairport too, which I wasn't 100% certain was P&W. Wayne Cole told us a lot more about that earlier today in the previous presentations. But what I'm going to focus on is down here near Pittsburgh without the H, at Allegheny. This map, made in 1887, was before Pittsburgh regained the H, and when the community across the river from downtown Pittsburgh was a separate community known as Allegheny and later Allegheny City. This is a photo of Pittsburgh. We're not used to this angle. We're not used to this year. This is one of the photos that I first stumbled upon that really put me on a mission, I guess. I grew up near Pittsburgh and visited my grandparents who lived there in the suburbs quite frequently over the years. And this was totally strange to me, this view, because a lot had changed since this was taken. This is between 1910 and 1920. It was originally posted on Shorpy.com, but can be found online in the Detroit Publishing Collection of the Library of Congress, where you can download a huge TIFF file. And anytime you download anything from the Library of Congress, I really recommend go for the big TIFF file, because you can do a lot more with that in the long run for your archives and resources. The first thing I noticed about this photo was this elevated line across the river. I didn't even realize this was Pittsburgh at first. This is the Pennsylvania Duquesne elevated line that connected the Pennsylvania yards in the Strip District with their large freight house and team yard operation right down at the point. This predates the West Side line built in New York and very popular. And I like to rub it into all my New York City and New York Central buddies that this happened in Pittsburgh long before it was built on the West Side. But then I noticed the foreground. What's this? I had no idea. I knew what this was here. That's Exposition Park, the original location where the Pittsburgh Pirate Baseball Club played baseball. It's where the original World Series were played too, 120 years ago. So I downloaded the site, the image, and I was able to zoom in for a quick look around. I knew about the ballpark from my grandfather because he used to watch Honus Wagner play ball in Exposition Park, usually by looking through a knothole or cracks in the outfield fence. But what was this railroad? What is this here? Let's take a closer look around. We see locomotive facilities, roundhouse here, looks like a machine shop, some sort of office here, and a neighborhood. We scan right a little bit, and we see something very interesting right here. Yeah, it's a steam locomotive, but that doesn't say Baltimore and Ohio. We can't really read it well, but there aren't many places that have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 characters written on a tender for a railroad that served Pittsburgh. Yeah, this is Buffalo, Rochester, and Pittsburgh locomotive. I had never seen a photo of a BRMP locomotive in Pittsburgh. Scan right a little bit more, get some nice freight cars, including an early nickel plate road car, lettered for the New York, Chicago, and St. Louis. Looks like a early B&O hopper on the left here near the Norfolk and Western boxcar. Scanning right a bit more, another B&O car, ventilated boxcar. Couple interesting hoppers in the background too. And some people in the stands enjoying a ball game. So this really piqued my interest. And then I found a cool map. We love cool maps, don't we? I can see you all nodding your heads, even though I really can't see you all nodding your heads. The GM Hopkins Company made plat maps for several cities, and these documented dwellings, industry, infrastructure, roadways, and railroads. There are several volumes created in different years that cover the city of Pittsburgh. Here we are looking at the School Street Yard from the other direction of the previous photo. The previous photo from the Library of Congress / Shorpy was taken from Observatory Hill that was just above and beyond where the red pointer is on the screen. Now, this is known as Pittsburgh and Western Railroad, which of course the B&O absorbed, but it was also used by the Buffalo, Rochester, and Pittsburgh. They shared these locomotive facilities with the B&O. There's team tracks, a couple team tracks down here, some storage tracks, and I believe some of these tracks were used for classification and some for arrival and departure. Here it is today. Much, obviously, has changed. The Pirates still play ball right near here, just off to the right, off the screen. The Pittsburgh Steelers play ball at Heinz Field, here off to the left. I'll toggle back. You can see the bridge here on the Allegheny River. This is the Fort Duquesne Bridge carrying the interstate across. Previous bridge that connected the North Shore was here on the left. This was the Manchester Bridge, and that plays into things quite a bit as we roll on with our story. There's a site online, Historic Pittsburgh, that has, I think, 30,000 images now. And it's just a wealth of information. And I found this photo that was taken from the Manchester Bridge in 1923. It's longer than it is wide, but it is the School Street Yard here on the North Shore, on the B&O Allegheny Yard branch. We don't see much of the stadium at this time. The Pirates moved to Forbes Field in 1909. There were a couple independent ball clubs that played at the Exposition Park after that. I believe the Pittsburgh Stogies and the Pittsburgh Keystones were two of them. Henry Freeman schooled me on this a while back, and my memories are unfortunately a little rough. This is the Clark Bar Factory back here on the right, but it was not served by the B&O. That's on the Pennsy main line, on the Fort Wayne main line there. We scan right a bit and see a little bit more. Water tower, the locomotive facilities over here on the right, and yard office here too. See a lot of pickle cars too. 1, 2, 3, 4, just right there. And in our last photo, I know some of you spotted this one right away on the left, plus a vinegar tank car. Here's another photo I found, same site, same location, but not taken from the Manchester Bridge because it's not built yet. This is in the background, we see the formations for the approach for the Manchester Bridge just taking shape. And this is the School Street Yard with several BRMP mill gonds at the ready, possibly brought in some steel for this project. These are the mill gonds that were done by Chad Boas and were available through the B&O Company store for a while. This is 1914. A couple things that show up in the distance here. This water tower shows up in a few photos from Hall Pump Company. These are gasometers in the background, and they show up only until about 1927. There was a catastrophic explosion there in 1927, and then they disappear from the maps. Obviously, my next step is to find ICC valuation maps for this branch. I'm in debt to my friend Keith DeVault in Morgantown for digging up these maps at the Archives 2 facility and having them scanned. These are long maps, and I'm only showing a portion here. There were 7 maps covering this branch, 1 index map, 6 other maps with details. So each map covers about a mile. This valuation section is number 95.1, in case you're taking notes. And we see the details here of the map that are very detailed. The Allegheny River is along the bottom. The format of the map was kind of opposite, since you see so many upside down notations along the track side. But I wanted to keep the river like we were standing in it, like we would probably in a model railroad that would be built. The maps aren't the only objects among the ICC valuation archives. There are quite a few photos too. School Street Yard was the southern terminus of the BRMP. They shared the local facilities, and they had this freight house, this really, really cool looking freight house. And if we go back, it's right here in the upper right corner of this valuation map edit. And beside it, we have the Alling and Corey warehouse, which shows up in the photo right here. Shows up in a lot of photos, actually. So the B&O also had a large facility on the North Shore, dubbed the North Shore Stores on the Form 6 book. And it looks pretty familiar, doesn't it? It looks a lot like the one in Manhattan. Follows a lot of similar architecture. It's all poured and reinforced concrete of the day. This is an ICC valuation image, and they didn't always compose the scene very well. I did not crop this at all. This is how I bought it from the B&O Railroad Museum, from their online store. I got both these images from there. Also in the photo is the Allegheny Depot, which stood there too. And a couple freight cars, portions of freight cars, I should say. We'll see a better shot of this coming up soon. School Street Yard was only one of the yards on this branch. With a few tracks there, it seemed more dedicated to the BRMP and also maybe a rival departure. The School Street Yard is just off the map. Here's the end of some of the tracks here. This is the Manchester Bridge approach and bridge crossing the Allegheny River. And then right on the other side, it's the yard throat for the Smoky Island Yard. Also adjacent to it is the South Avenue Yard, and these also show up as line items in the Form 6 book. This is a good size team yard right in here. And then across South Avenue, we've got Damascus Bronze. We've got the Kaufman department store warehouse, which may still be standing, I can't remember. And then down a couple blocks, we've got the Barrett Manufacturing Company, and you probably are familiar with the tank cars that have Tarvia written on the side. That's one of the things they produced was Tarvia, used in asphalt. Another online resource are Pen Pilot aerial images. The Penn State Library has these available as digital downloads. This is a 1939 view of both the Smoky Island and School Street yards. This is the earliest date for aerials available through Penn Pilot and the Penn State Library. And we can see a new element in the yard. We've got an updated freight house right here. And using my computer, we can zoom in a little bit to get a better look. School Street yard, still a bunch of cars, possibly for storage. We had a repair and place yard here too, beside the engine facilities. And the new facility here, which I believe was mainly for a freight forwarding company. And the engine facility is still in place. We can scan left. We pass over the approach to the Manchester Bridge there and have a good look at the Smoky Island yard. There's a few more buildings in here too that weren't on the valuation map. The South Avenue Team Yard stands out with quite a few cars there too. And then we have the Kaufman's Warehouse is here. I don't know if Damascus Bronze is still going in 1939. And this should be where the Tarvia plant was. I'm not 100% sure it was there in 1939. But it's another resource, Penn Pilot. So here we go. Let's do a quick run through the resources that I've used so far. These are where I found photos. Historic Pittsburgh site, Library of Congress. Here's where I found maps and other information. Now, don't be scrolling this stuff down. Look in the chat. I've copied and pasted all of this in the chat so that you can access it. Just copy and paste so you can save it easily. It'll also be available, I assume, with these recorded resources, with these recorded presentations. So moving forward, what I like about this branch is an interesting combination of small and medium-sized customers just in the first 3 miles. We're back to the Hopkins map here. We've got a good look at the big old North Shore Stores building and the depot here in the yellow. River Avenue runs all along most of the branch, most of the first 3 miles of the branch. I like this block a lot, United Storage, and then we have a bunch of dwellings and probably some retail on the street that crosses the river here. Notice one of these plots is owned by the Pittsburgh and Western Railroad Company. A few photos capture these long-lost structures. This 1911 scene is very handy, as all these buildings were gone by 1928. So this is a team track, basically. River Ave and cars probably acting as a team, secondary team track here, as well as here's an Illinois Central boxcar tucked in on the track for United Storage. We'll go back one. This track here. What I like too is this crane back here. Pretty cool. And then River Ave ramps up to the bridge approach. The City of Pittsburgh photographer, well, there's a large collection of photos from the City of Pittsburgh photographer on the Historic Pittsburgh site. They documented many public works and improvement projects. This is a photo, the same stretch of street as the previous photo, but looking the other way, taken in 1912. The previous photo was taken from this bridge across the river over here. We get a better look at the crane and some more cool freight cars and what was going on River Ave. A little bit, another view of the United Storage facility here and an idea of what the front looked like on these tenements. We saw the B&O Stores building earlier in a valuation image. This is a better look from a book on Pittsburgh rail and industry that I found on the Historic Pittsburgh site. We get a little better look at the Allegheny Depot here, and it's on stilts because this river flooded. So it's above the flood line. Also, 2 more pickle cars. Yay for pickle cars. And this photo, the photographer was on the bridge across the Allegheny River. This looks like a locomotive down here too. One of the bigger industries on this line was the H.J. Heinz plant. It's probably the largest customer in the first few miles of the branch, and was an extensive operation served by the B&O Allegheny Yard branch on one side and the Penzies Fort Wayne division on the other side of the operation. And yeah, this is what we're looking at. This is the Fort Wayne main line right here, and some of the Penzie sidings serving the north side of the facility. If we just look at the structure, there's a lot of architectural eye candy right there. It's just gorgeous. All this lettering is inset brick. It's not painted. It's inset. And we have a Heinz logo on the towers too. This Heinz over here is inset in the brick. Most of the decent images from the teens through the 30s were taken on this Penzie side, but there are a few taken on the B&O side. This 1908 image shows us River Ave and the sauces and mustard building for the Heinz complex. And some cool freight cars. Pierre Marquette with a very early emblem. This area is interesting too, and we'll get to that in a few minutes. We're going to jump ahead a bit to 1936. As with many industries, there was changes and growth. If we look closely, this is I believe it's the mustard and sauces building from here. They started painting Heinz on the brickwork too. And here's that space, that empty space that was here. We'll get to that in a minute. Now, the branch is currently a walking and biking path. My friend Dave Wilson and I did some on-the-ground research back in August 2018. Many of the buildings from the 1920s plant have been replaced, including this large building replaced a lot of the Heinz production as it was built in the 30s, the early 30s. Unfortunately, while the weather was nice, I didn't have a great lens for some of this, but I made do with what I had. Here's another shot of an adjacent facility. The Allegheny River is off to the right. B&O Allegheny Yard branch should be right through the foliage there. This building was built in 1926 as per the engraving in the stone of the tower there. From what I could determine, there was only one other building in the complex currently that dates from the pre-1930 years, and it's back here, tucked away in an alley, very hard to access. Now, you remember that empty space? This is 1921. It's basically the car shop. It's an open-air car shop for Heinz. We have the Allegheny River in the background. We see a little bit of the rails of the B&O Allegheny Yard branch. See a couple pickle tank cars here and some vinegar tanks getting prepped for reuse on a vinegar tank car frame, and some signage and stuff. I love this photo. Gives me a lot of information, especially since I've got a few of these pickle tank cars to build that Westerfield Models created and produced. I never expected to need pickle tank cars for a layout, but here we go. There are many other industries along the branch that have eluded photographic documentation. I stumbled onto this 1905 document in the historic Pittsburgh site and found more industry images. Not as many as I'd like, but enough. And try saying the title of this 6 times real fast. You'll be in a pickle pretty quickly. Heinz wasn't the only pickle packer on the branch. Lutz and Schramm had a decent operation located between Heinz and Willow Grove. In fact, it was right near the Pennsy Bridge to Hers Island in the slaughterhouses. Both these images were on a single page in the Palmer pictorial. Through the magic of Photoshop, I was able to coax a decent image out of it to share with this presentation. This is the Hers Island Bridge in the background here, and the Pennsy, I guess that's the Allegheny Valley line then, that served Hers Island. And there's the B&O line in the foreground here, and the Allegheny River. Here's the ICC valuation map look, and someone prominently labeled this food product, so we couldn't be, confused about things at all. It's always nice to see a food products plant next to National Lead and Oil, too. Gives those pickles a little more zip. Let's shift back to the Smoky Island Yard. It's close to the midpoint of the branch. A lot of action there. A lot of tracks, too. This was a surprise when I stumbled onto this when I got the evaluation maps. Several customers are adjacent to Smoky Island and within the next mile. Yep, we're going from Smoky Island at milepost 3 down to 3.9 and another team track. There are several team tracks all along here. This Beaver Avenue track only holds 4 cars. The South Avenue team track only holds 6. This is not the same as the South Avenue yard, which holds 137. That was a larger team yard adjacent to South Avenue. What I find interesting is this selection here. If you're familiar with Form 6 books, you'll note the parentheses often denote all these industries on one track. This K45A is the track number. All these industries are served by one track with a 3-car capacity. So, some of these companies only got an occasional car. Remember those gasometers in the background of the one photo? Here they are, Philadelphia Company and Consolidated Gas. It's one of my favorite shots down along the river. Not all the spurs and industries were located on the far side of the line. There were a few spurs between the Allegheny Yard branch and the river. This is the City of Pittsburgh asphalt plant. Oop. I know you're loving all these old B&O Gons here. There are 3 different classes in this photo. These 2 are the same. This is the same as those. This one's different, and this one's different yet. This is a 36-footer. I believe these steel ones are 018s, 017 back here for the composite car. I think these are 014, 015. They were gone by the 20s, so it's not something I keep fresh in my mind. Now, here's the original appearance of this photo from the historic Pittsburgh site. Some of these images need to be massaged in Photoshop to bring out the details, like this. You can't download the images from the historic Pittsburgh site either. What I do is I use my wife's computer with a larger screen, and I'll do a screen capture just to save the image. Then I'll load that stuff onto a thumb drive, take it up to my computer, and do my Photoshopery on them in order to see what's there easier. and to save for my archive. Always save the original and then retitle what you massaged. Another great resource is a historic steamboat image collection at the University of Wisconsin-La Crosse. That's where I found this photo, and this is just downstream from the Smoky Island Yard. I'm going to zoom in a bit. Along the banks, we're at the Ohio River now, along the Ohio. So National Casket is right here, obviously. And I believe this is part of the Pittsburgh Knife and Forge plant that's right beside it. And there's a Crucible Steel Label Works just off to the right of that. This boiler company doesn't show up in the Form 6, but there's a team track right there too. That might be what some of these cars are on behind the Harriet steamboat. And I don't know about these derricks. I'm not familiar with oil being drilled on the North Shore of Pittsburgh in the Manchester neighborhood, which we're edging onto here. Or if those are some sort of crane. I don't know. It's always interesting, right? Going back to our Form 6, there are many industries of varying sizes further down the branch. There's a Pennsy connection here. This is, I believe, Preble Street. Can't remember. This is close to Preble Street where the Pennsy had a decent-sized teen yard. And there's a connection here, but there's not a whole lot of interchange here. From what I've found in some B&O documents, a lot of the interchange happened up at Willow Grove because it was easier to exchange longer cuts of cars with the Pensy's Allegheny Valley branch at that point too. There's an interesting business right down here, third from the bottom, the American Locomotive Works. This was the Pittsburgh Locomotive Works originally, and then merged into Alco. But it closed around 1924. Remember, this Form 6 book is 1922. They closed in 24, and Duquesne Light took over the facility for storage. This company here at the bottom also raised my interest, Cruikshank's brother. What did they make? Anyone want to guess? Who guessed pickles? Yep, another pickle packer. This is also from the Palmer's Pictorial book from 1905. So I'm not 100% sure if this is a Pittsburgh and Western locomotive here and part of a train, or if it's B&O. 1905 would have been close. And who knows when this artwork was originally produced. But if you want to look more into pickles, David Leiter's book on the pickle and vinegar makers of the Midwest is excellent. It's been very helpful in identifying cars for Cruikshanks and the Lutz and Schramm operation for possible modeling and to help in routing possibilities. You know, the pickles have to get from the field to the packing plant. And a lot of them came across northern Ohio one way or another. Looking at the last mile of the branch, there's a few larger operations. Carnegie Steel, one of their furnaces. A couple Pittsburgh Screw and Bolt operations there. Standard Sanitary Manufacturing Company. You know what they made, right? Ceramic stuff, toilets, sinks. And we've got another interesting one down here with 457 car capacity, the Press Steel Car Company, which was down toward the end. Now, unfortunately, I haven't really found any photos of these operations to share. Haven't found anything on these yet. Eventually something will turn up. So we look to the maps. Again, back to our Hopkins map. That's a lot of fun to just scroll through and see what was going on. The Pennsy over here, I can't remember. This might be the Island Avenue Yard Complex over on the right. This is the Ohio connecting bridge that connected the Pennsy on both sides of the river, the Ohio River at this point. These were fairly large facilities. Structures were easily visible in the 1939 aerial from Penn Pilot. This is Western Penitentiary, which remains in use. If you look closely, you can see the line here that the B&O ran along to connect up with the rest of the Allegheny Yard branch. Here's pressed steel down toward the end, and also Pittsburgh Forge and iron. You know, when I found out Press Steel Car Company was down on this branch, I was really excited, and I had dreams of new outbound freight cars rolling along the line through to Willow Grove, you know, without having to worry about weathering. But I've read references that the plant closed in 1925, a year and a half before my modeling moment. I'm still looking for primary source information on that and any images on the plant. By 1939, all gone. All gone. Here's one of the few images I've found online for the Press Steel Car Company plant in McKees Rocks. This is a bigger plant on the other side of the river from the other plant at the end of the B&O branch. See some shadow of it in the murkiness of the background here. This is the main gate. We've got a trolley line at grade crossing right here too. This image is dated 1919, also from the Pittsburgh Historic Photos Collection site. Now you're probably wondering, okay, what do we use for motive power? I suspect quite a few of these D7 class 060 switchers were used. This is a Ralph Dunn photo at Allegheny Yard in 1934. Now, what's interesting is that the Form 6 book, the 1922 Form 6 book, lists loco ratings on the line beyond Smoky Island Yard that change what could be used. Several charts in the early pages of the Form 6 illustrate engine restrictions based on ratings of engines according to effect on bridges. And the reference for that is on pages 66 and 67 of that 1922 volume. From Willow Grove to the Allegheny shops, the rating is 240, which is good for loco classes weighing less than the Q4 mics. Beyond the shops, the rating falls to 150, restricting loco use to early B, C, D, and E class locomotives. So these D7 class locos, they fall into the 190 rating and technically too heavy to work beyond the Allegheny shops and probably the Smoky Island Yard. So modeling 1926, I might have to look at even lighter power for some of the work beyond the yards. I suspect larger 280s were used for transfer runs from Willow Grove, going to Willow Grove and back, and maybe some heavier switching at B&O stores and Heinz. These E24 class locos, they had the same 190 rating as the D7s. This is a Phil Sawyering photo dated 1937 in Pittsburgh. I suspect this might be Glenwood. I've got a couple of these in brass waiting for a layout to be built. Now the BRMP was here too. I have no idea what they used. Possibly an 060 like this gem, or an older Brooks 280. I suspect on this line each company may have used some older power. This is a former BRMP 155. One of these classes survives and is at the Age of Steam Roundhouse in Ohio. They're working on cosmetic restoration. This is also a Ralph Dunn photo from 1934. Now the BRMP had a weight restriction on the bridge crossing the Allegheny at Moss Grove further north. So their larger locos may not have migrated north. Possibly they had some 282s that worked the line south of Moss Grove to Butler, Newcastle, and to the Allegheny Yard branch. So all of this, excuse me, all of this info, maps, photos, data, this has kind of fueled my layout dreams. And the more I present this, the more I get a lot of reaction from other people, other modelers who were like, this is really cool. Narrowing our focus more to a smaller section, I can probably put this part of this in a bedroom or something too. So that's what I'm thinking now. I've narrowed down what I want for my layout. And we all have givens and druthers, right? We've all made these lists over the time. And over the last decade, my preferences have come into greater focus while operating on other layouts and helping others build their layout. I'm not looking for a huge project. I want something I can enjoy, something manageable, and also something I can move easier. I probably have at least one more move coming up. Moved quite a few times in the last 10 years. And want to be able to pack something up and take it and be able to set it up pretty easily. I like the KISS principle. Keep it simple, stupid, right? Keeping it to one level, no hidden staging. Willow Grove will actually be staging, but it'll be out in the open and switchable. I also like the added bonus of being able to model two railroads, the B&O and the BRMP. Although I've never lived there, Pittsburgh has been central to my family. Frequently visited grandparents who lived in Mount Oliver and Wilkinsburg. Later on, they moved to Upper St. Clair. My grandfather, who watched Hannes Wagner at Exposition Park, he worked at the Heinz plant during World War II, building gliders. And I toured the Heinz plant in elementary school. Seems like a lifetime ago. Lastly, the BRMP was my favorite railroad in my formative model railroad years growing up in Indiana, PA, which was centered on the BRMP Indiana branch. So research has become the foundation for my layout desires. The valuation maps are great, but often full of details that we don't necessarily need for a layout. I like to create simple line drawings that follow the prototype track layouts. It helps me understand the different components that the prototype had. Perspective of these drawings has the Allegheny River down along the lower edge. I also labeled these with information on customers based on the 1922 Form 6 and also what's in the valuation maps too. This calorie siding is another one of those team tracks that show up quite a bit. Here's the connection that the PRR had to Hers Island, where the slaughterhouse was. And I also noted what valuation maps these represent too. Jotting down as much as you can on doodles and sketches like this just help you find the stuff again when you go looking for it. Here we are going downriver some, away from Willow Grove. Until I started drawing these line drawings, I didn't realize the Allegheny Yard branch was double track all the way down to Smoky Island Yard. I had no idea until I started drawing. There were other things that I didn't notice that popped out at me, like this dam. I hadn't noticed that either. There were scales here at the Heinz Company. The river crossings I also marked on the drawings too, so that I could keep track of what was where. Here we go a little bit further along, the Fort Wayne Bridge here for the Pennsy. And then these bridges here, they had different names on each side. Downtown Pittsburgh, these are the 6th, 7th, and 9th Street bridges. On the North Shore, Anderson Street, Sandusky Street, and Federal Street. This is a remnant from when this was a different city. These three bridges are very popular now and show up a lot in Pittsburgh promotions. These are the Three Sisters. They're all similar suspension-looking bridges, and they're all painted in a yellow gold paint. but they weren't there in 1926. They came along slowly, starting in 1927, as the Corps of Engineers wanted to elevate the pool along the Allegheny River. So therefore, the clearances on the bridges had to change too. Here's School Street Yard. Becomes very apparent drawing these things where the rip tracks were in the teen yard and such. Here's another track along the embankment for Rogers Sand. And the Manchester Bridge down here on the left. So these have been really my main focus. And I hope to start soon on a couple sections to build and to combine with segments from my Wheeling Freight Terminal. I hope to focus mainly on these two segments first, building them on hollow core doors. We'll zoom in. This is the B&O stores. Where's my pointer? There we go. B&O stores here. This is the 9th Street Bridge, 7th Street Bridge, 6th Street Bridge. Whoops. And then this is the segment with the Union Warehouse here and the gantry crane and a team track or two. As you can see, it's pretty busy. This is a rare aerial view from 1911. I don't know how this was taken, possibly from a balloon. There's no building in Pittsburgh that was tall enough at this time to really get this kind of a photo. But it captures, a good bit of the branch. There's the roundhouse for the School Street Yard and the BRMP, Freight House, Elling and Corey. This is what I feel is the heart of this branch and what I hope to focus on first. Oops, need to zoom out. Nope. Well, how did I do that? Let's go back to this. I'm almost done. Here we see the School Street Yard a little better. This is the Pennsy Fort Wayne line in the background. Here's the Clark factory right there. And that's it. I want to thank you for your attention and attending the B&O Historical Society's Zoom convo today. Hope you've enjoyed it as much as I have. Again, the resources are posted in the chat area. You can go in now and copy those, paste them into a Word doc or something like that. I checked all the links beforehand, so they should be fine. Here's the resources again.
Anybody have any questions for Eric at all in the room? There are no questions, Eric. We really thank you very much for making the presentation.
Sure. May I show the audience one other thing?
Okay.
I mentioned the Pittsburgh Historic Map site. This is one of the coolest sites in the world, I think, because these are Hopkins maps that are stitched together. And you can zoom in for like the same level of detail. This layer is set for 1923. But you can cruise around Pittsburgh and you can change layers too. You can go earlier, 1890. You can go to some of the later aerials, 1957, as well as what's there currently. I get lost on this site. Growing up around Pittsburgh, I've visited so many of these places, and looking back, peeling the layers of the onion to see what was there. It's just incredible, Down in the Strip District, I had no idea that there was a decent sized foundry and steel operation just beyond the Penzies Fort Wayne Bridge. Yeah, there's steel right there, American Steel and Wire operation right there. So just cool stuff. It's one of the links in the chat area that I hope you guys take advantage of and enjoy. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Eric. For those in the room and those on the virtual presentation, that wraps up the mini-con for today. Only thing I will remind you is the Akron Convention. Hope that many of the members can attend. And the second is that Wayne's Cole's book on the Lake Branch, which Wayne talked about in this presentation, will be available from the company store. And we expect it in late August, early September. And there will be sent out by email. There will be order forms sent out to you. So I think that's it, Greg.
Thanks, everybody. Thank you.